What's up, college football fans and Mean Green fans? Sonoy Valente here once again with the Mean Green Show. Today, joined by Miles. Miles, how are you doing? I know you made the trip out to UTEP. You just got back Metroplex side, right, here in the past hour or so. So how was your trip? And, what was that like going to the Sun Bowl?
It was a really, really good experience. A lot of people have always told me, and just in general, a lot of people on Twitter and on other sites have said that visiting the Sun Bowl is something you need to do. It's a very scenic area, and it lived up to it. I mean, it's literally on the side of a mountain. It was a really fun experience. A lot of cool people, big crowd. I mean, if the rain did not come, which kind of threw me off because I wasn't expecting rain, but if the rain didn't show up, I think that place would have been even more full than it said. Because I mean, they said 45,000. I would say it was about 40,000 there. But with that rain, it kind of took it away. But it was still a really good experience. Not as much tailgating as I thought, just, the rain again. But really, really beautiful area, really beautiful campus. I mean, there's a lot of native Texas plants in that area. It was really, really nice. I had a great time, though. Really good hospitality. Everything's close. Our hotel was 5 minutes away. Driving. I mean, it was a really good experience, and of course, walking out with a win is even better. And the little 24-hour trip was well worth it, well worth the money.
Yeah, absolutely. And piggyback off what you said as far as coming out with a win, yes, very convincing win. There's a lot of good, a lot of bad to talk. Well, a lot of good. There's some bad to talk about, and we'll talk about both of those here today. But focusing on the good first, and the run game and running back by committee, right? I mean, they all combined for 150 yards, and man, they all look solid. And Ikaika Ragsdale got the start. I know maybe he didn't find his footing as quickly, and they rotated the others in, and between Io and Isaiah Johnson, and of course Oscar Attaway. It was great seeing him back out there, and also it was really good to not only see him score, but that they didn't have to overuse him, being that he is coming off of, I think it was an ACL, and you just don't want to have to, dump the bulk of the carries on him if you don't have to. And thankfully, we don't have to, because Coach Cobbs has got himself a stable of running backs that I think a lot of teams in this conference would really like to have on their roster. So, I mean, really can't say enough good things about the offensive line and the run game, just opening up holes and dominating on the ground. I mean, it's just that simple. And then going over to the receiving side, Rod Burns, myself and Bruni, I mean, we kind of say, Rod Burns, he was a walk-on. He shouldn't be the leading receiver, but here he was again, the leading receiver. And that's just going to be what it is. That's going to be what it is. I mean, he looks good. I mean, he looks like he's taken another step forward even this season. And man, he looked really, really good. I mean, he made some clutch catches, some contested catches, and took some hard hits in some of those catches. And again, really great game by Rod Burns. And not really a surprise, but I guess his breakout game. And Jake Roberts, man, second leading receiver on the team. I think he had like 50-something yards and got his first touchdown. Just, looked really good. And Ani missed him on one, which, would have been, even more yards. But, really good game by Jake Roberts. I think he's going to be just really important in this offense. And Pirtle was tweeting about it, about, the third down legacy or whatever the tradition, is carry on, as Pirtle was kind of that third down safety valve for a while. And Jake Roberts seems to be stepping in that role. And I think, as awesome as Pirtle was, I think Jake Roberts can take that position to a whole new height.
Yes.
And, he's only a redshirt sophomore, whatever it is. So really excited about the game that Jake Roberts had. And Bush, coming off that injury, I know he only had one catch, but it was for a very critical touchdown. It was the first touchdown, and it was one-on-one. And, kudos to Ani and Bush having that connection. But that was really a must-need touchdown at that time. So the fact that Bush was able to come down with that touchdown in such an important time was awesome. Austin Ani, 236 yards passing, 3 TDs, 0 interceptions. Great job by Ani by not turning over the ball. He did
fumble.
That's right. One fumble that I swore up a storm when that happened. And I said some bad words. My wife said, "You can't say those words," and you're gonna wake her son. It was that, yes, but one turnover, but not by way of interception. So, anyway, no interceptions. That's positive. And he did throw some tight window balls there. I mean, we'll get into some of the things that maybe Ani can hopefully do better, but he did make some tight window passes. And anyway, so that's some of the good, but I just kind of want to pass to you. You were there, obviously. What else did you see that, that you liked offensively?
I mean, Ani looked so much more confident. I mean, now there was a few. I don't think he's quite skilled enough with like his running out of the pocket passes. He had a few where he missed Roberts. That one made me mad. I mean, that was I think Robert tried to dive and catch it because he just overshot him. I mean, if he catches that's 25 plus yards. But I mean, he looked more confident. He looked like he had better vision down the field. He wasn't really like tunneling his passes to the same person. He wasn't really locking in on one person. That's what he had problems with last year in 2020 for sure. He would really not look at another receiver, but he has more options this year, even with Jair and Latrell, however you say his name.
And Jordan
With them,
Smart.
yes, and Jordan Smart too. I forgot he was on that list as well as I forgot who else was on that list.
Yeah.
I think it's Dory Morris, maybe. But Damon Ward also had some big catches. I mean, they looked like they had better connection. You had a full fall camp and during fall camp, it was a little bit shaky from what I saw. Some of those scrimmages and practices that I watched, it looked a little shaky, but at the same time, they were connecting better. I mean, offensive line wise, I mean, they played pretty well. UTEP is really good up front. I mean, I don't know if you could tell, but I mean, UTEP was bringing a lot of pressure. Ani had pressure in his face a lot of the time, and North Texas did a pretty good job at blocking that. A lot of good receivers blocking, especially for Attaway's touchdown. And Attaway's, and I forgot who had the other one. I think it was when he had the flip pass to Isaiah Johnson. That's who it was. That one was great blocking up the field. They're getting better on the outside with blocking. I think next week against SMU, they're a little bit bigger up front. It's going to be harder to do that. But at the same time, guys like Iowa Day and Isaiah Johnson and Oscar Attaway, who I think was just trying to get in his groove again. He hadn't played in a full year. I think they're going to be crucial, but they're going to have to really show up early and often. You can't have your first three drives going not three and out, but just stalling. And then you can't fumble inside the 10-yard line, in your own 10-yard line, especially. That almost was a really, really bad sequence of events because UTEP could have scored. I know we aren't talking about defense right now, but man, that defense stepped up a lot in some of these categories. But Ani looked really confident, and I'm really impressed. He has to have this confidence next week, and I hope we have our receivers all confident next week as well, because SMU is very big on the outside and their defensive backs. They got some really good guys like Jari Rogers, and they have some other guys they transferred in. I think one from Arizona State. I mean, it's gonna be tough, but I'm really, really proud of these guys how they fought back too. They had a weather delay, and they weren't playing very well, and they fought back. Really, really good effort in that second half. That felt really good to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of just adding to that, yeah, they were loading the box up, and we still managed to rush for 150 yards, again, running back by committee. But yeah, so awesome there. Defensively, held their rushing attack to only 78 yards. Katie and Larry Nixon are quite the tandem. I think they're a really good, linebacking duo for this conference. I mean, I know there were some penalties that some of them I don't think should have been penalties, whatever, though. But even set those penalties by those two aside, I think they're just really, really just veteran linebackers. They're obviously Katie Davis, but also Larry Nixon. And, we clean up some of those mental penalties that the defensive line, jumping off sides, whatever. I think we're going to, be pretty decent there. And, obviously you were mentioning Tom Trebe probably getting some holds that weren't getting called and whatnot. And Mason Richards, I mean, he was,
he was probably the best. He stood out the most on defense. I mean, I think he had the one roughing the passer that was probably the worst one. But I mean, he looked really well.
Yes.
A lot of these guys, like you said, with Rod Young being a walk on, was Richards? Is he a scholarship player? Is that right, or is he?
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Well, I mean, just some of these guys that just rose up into the depth chart. I mean, it's unbelievable, and he's starting too.
Yeah,
that's really impressive.
Yeah. Great pickup by Coach Bennett and the defensive staff, getting him in there from, again, Division II. I mean, and he's, man,
okay.
Thank God we have him. One other player I wanted to highlight from the defense, I think Desean Gaddy might have played the best game he's played in this in his career so far at North Texas. I can't remember the timing of the game, but there was one play. It was to the end zone. Gaddy, I mean, it was a great throw, and honestly, it was a great offensively schemed up. But Gaddy just played it perfect. Didn't even touch the receiver from what I was seeing on the TV. But I was, oh man, they're going to call some pass interference BS. But just perfect, and that was a crucial stop. I mean, or a pass break or whatever that, however they registered that. But I mean, just Gaddy really just played phenomenal, and I mean, thank God that we had him last night. But anything else you want to highlight on the defense before we kind of move over to the bad side of things? Some things that would probably need some correction.
You're right. I mean, Gaddy played out of his mind. I mean, that was one of his. That was probably no. That was definitely his best game he's ever played in a UNT uniform. I mean, he had that one play. He had another one that was over the middle of the field. It was in the first half, and it was against I think the best receiver UTEP has. They lost Cowling last year, but this past year, but he had a great pass deflection. He was not getting over the top. He was not getting burned as. I don't think he got burned. I think it was Whitlock that got burned on that deep route that the receiver dropped in the end zone. Was that on get? I think that was either the safety Keelan Crosby or it was Whitlock. But I mean, Whitlock still played good too. I mean, considering he had a rough little start, he still played very well. Had that, I know it was the end of the game, but he had that little interception type breakup, and someone mentioned on Going Green it was. They were like, well, I got really mad. They were just rushing three because we were rushing three a lot of the time. And UTEP was holding, which, that's beside the point. But we were rushing three, and I think it helped our defensive backs with how many times UTEP was throwing the ball. It helped them with applying more pressure on the outside because they had more opportunities to make pass deflections, to stay with the UTEP passing game. Because, I mean, our defensive backs are pretty good, but they're not quick enough, I think, to be in man coverage this whole time. And they had better help on the outside to really keep them under control. And Hardison was, what was did I say? He was 21 of 48. I mean, some of those passes were great deflections. Now, they did drop a few. That one especially, that was that's a touchdown. But, I mean, they played so much better. And it's not just against an FCS team. This is UTEP. This is a FBS team. Came off a bowl game last year. So, I mean, I have higher hopes. SMU is going to be really tough. I mean, we already know SMU is really tough, but at least they have a lot of confidence going into this game, unlike last year where it was kind of last year in 2019 and 2020, really, where they kind of just had a lackadaisical game, 37 points against an FCS team.
Yeah. And kind of, moving over things that, hopefully it's just week 0, maybe they'll get corrected, with just time and, getting reacclimated to football. Right. But Austin Ani, touching on some things that hopefully Ani can correct. 55%. It is a step up from what he's had from last season. Still not the best in the world. Hopefully that can get moved up to 57, 58, if not 60 or plus. But I mean, I'm not trying to rag on Ani too much, but there's just some passes, man, that just like the one to Jake Roberts. There was another one that was really close, just right over the heads. I think that was to Rod Burns maybe, but there was just some passes that just, we've seen from Ani, and it's just kind of concerning. Like, and that's not going to work against UAB, UTSA, FAU. I mean, the ones that, you got to win one of those 3 probably. And
I guess you got to win 2 of those 3 to be able to. Yeah, follow team. You got 1, 2 of those 3. I mean, and they're all FAU's at home, but the other 2 on the road.
Yeah,
1, 2 of those.
And defense, got to clean up the penalties like we touched on earlier. Can't let kind of busted coverages like we saw that drop touchdown. And I know Dana Dimmel said the comment of like, we play them 10 times, we're going to win 8 times. I guess they legalized marijuana in El Paso. I'm not sure why he said that, but that's just that was an asinine statement in my opinion. But I don't believe that to be true. I think whatever. However, nevertheless, that game could have got a little hairier. I mean, there was a lot of meat left on the bone by UTEP. There was about 17 points, or at least 10 they left out. Just out to dry. They had some weird play calls there, and so I don't know. That could have been a lot closer than it was. Would have swung the momentum, and we probably would have had to pass a lot more. Which, who knows how that would have went. But one question I want to leave you with before we get off here, though, is one of the most alarming things to me is there was probably 2 drives at the minimum where we could have seen another quarterback come in. The game was locked and over, and we never saw that. And we saw that in the Mason Fine era. And this is going to be Ani's last year, according to Ani. Not saying I want that or don't want that. I'm just saying that's what he said. We need to see another quarterback get reps. And if that's Grant Gunnell, and I don't see why they didn't put him in. But do you have any thoughts on that? Why maybe we didn't see Gunnell in those last 2 drives just to get some throws in? I mean, what you have any thoughts on that
I
topic?
thought about that, and I was talking to Alejandro about it, and I was like, I think since this is against a more on-level team to North Texas, and next week you have a very, very big game against a team that is 2 steps better than UTEP. I feel like their thinking was, since it's not a 30, 40-point blowout, keep them in and get more reps. I think since this is the first game of the year, they want them to get more reps because honestly, if you're playing against an FCS school, there's no point in keeping Ani into the fourth quarter. But since the game was not that far out, I don't like it, but I understand if that was the reason
Mm-hmm.
why they did that, because it made more sense just to get Ani more reps, even if UTEP kind of gave up because they looked like they were gassed on defense, mainly their secondary because there was some mainly the secondary. The front 7 was really good,
Mm-hmm.
but the secondary looked kind of gassed at the end. But I feel like we need to see another quarterback, but at the same time, because like, you always think, what if Ani gets injured? Because then you have nobody else who had game experience. Because Reuter's only had 3 games of experience. Gunnell's had like 5 or 6, and he hadn't had that in 2 years. So I see the problem with it. At the same time, I don't. It's kind of confusing, but it made a little bit of sense just because of how big next week is.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, thanks as always for jumping on. Can't wait to talk again soon. Hopefully after this SMU game, maybe we'll pull up an upset, and that's what it would have to be because SMU is loaded. So we'll see how
I'm
that
ready for that
shakes out.
preview. Oh yeah,
Yeah. All right, Miles. Well, thank you, and go Mean Green.
Going green.